He found an injured Apache woman on his property. 3 months later, she became his bride. The sun was just beginning to dip below the jagged horizon of New Mesa, casting long, warm shadows over the dusty plains. Cole Harper squinted against the glare, his wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his eyes. He had spent the better part of the day checking the solar wind turbines at the edge of his property, making sure the panels hadn't suffered damage from the sudden gusts that swept the canyon. In the quiet moments, the wind carried whispers across the land, and he often imagined them as stories from the old frontier, the ones his grandfather used to tell him. Cole's ranch was one of the last stretches of land untouched by the corporate energy conglomerates that had begun swallowing towns and farms alike. Life here was hard, but it was honest. He liked it that way. The property was vast, stretching across rolling plains and into narrow canyon valleys. He could ride for miles without seeing another human being. That's why when he saw something unusual near the far ridge, his heart skipped a beat. At first he thought it was a shadow or a rock shaped oddly by the wind. But as he rode closer, he realized it was a person, a woman, lying on the ground. Her dark hair was tangled with dust and dried blood, and her clothes were torn, but not in the way of normal wear. There were small burns along the fabric, like she had been caught in a spark from some kind of machinery. She groaned softly, and when Cole called out, her head lifted slightly. Her eyes were a deep, penetrating brown, filled with pain, fear, and something else he couldn't immediately place. Cole slowed his horse and dismounted carefully. "Hey there, can you hear me?" he asked in a calm voice, though his heart pounded in his chest. She flinched at the sound, pulling a ragged blanket closer to her. I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice was weak. Cole crouched down, keeping his hands visible. "You're not fine," he said gently. "Let me help you." She shook her head, but the movement was sluggish. Cole noticed something strange along her left arm, a faint metallic glint beneath her skin. Curious, but careful not to touch her without permission, he guessed she might be carrying some kind of cybernetic enhancement. That wasn't uncommon in the New Mesa frontier, but it made him more cautious. "Can you walk?" he asked, keeping his tone low. She tried, but her legs buckled. I can't," she admitted, her voice barely audible over the wind. Cole knew he had no choice. He gently lifted her onto his horse, using a blanket as a makeshift sling. She didn't resist anymore. She seemed too tired. The ride back to the ranch was quiet, the only sound being the rhythmic clop of the horse's hooves in the whispering wind. Cole kept glancing at her, unsure if she would speak, but she stared ahead silently, her eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting danger to come from every shadow. When they reached the ranch, Cole guided the horse into the corral and helped her down. He placed her on a makeshift cot inside the barn, away from the evening chill. "Rest," he said. "I'll get you something for the pain and clean those wounds." She nodded slightly, but still didn't speak. Cole rummaged through his supplies, pulling out antiseptic, bandages, and a small kit of nanobot healing patches he had used on livestock injuries. The future and the past lived side by side on his ranch. Wind turbines and energy panels, yet wooden fences and horse saddles. As he worked, he glanced at her face. She had delicate features, high cheekbones, and dark hair that framed her face like a shadow. Her expression was wary, as if she had been hunted for a long time. He didn't know her story, but something about her presence felt important. "You're safe here," he said softly. "I won't let anyone hurt you." Her eyes flickered at his words. She didn't respond, but she didn't pull away either. Cole finished bandaging her wounds and set a water container and some food nearby. "Eat if you can," he said. "We'll talk later." For a long time she just lay there, silent, watching him move around the barn. Cole felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was used to hard work and long days, but caring for someone like this was new. He didn't know if she was running from someone or what danger she had faced, but he knew he couldn't ignore her. Night fell, and the wind carried a chill across the plains. Cole stoked a small fire near the barn entrance and sat close enough to keep watch, but far enough not to disturb her. The sky was filled with stars, brighter here than anywhere else in the canyon. He found himself thinking about the stories his grandfather used to tell, of Apache warriors, of survival in harsh lands, and of the courage it took to protect what was right. The woman finally spoke when the fire crackled and popped. "My name is Ayana," she said softly, her voice rough from exhaustion. I didn't mean to trouble you." "You're not trouble," Cole said immediately. "I'm Cole Harper. You're safe here, Ayana. That's all that matters right now." Her eyes held his for a moment, measuring him, testing if his words were true. Then she looked away, her gaze settling on the distant canyon ridges. "They're after me," she said quietly. "The ones with the machines. They want the energy. My people, I escaped, but I don't know where to go." Cole's mind raced. He had heard rumors about corporations hunting native clans for rare energy sources, stealing what was left of the land and resources, but he had never imagined he would encounter someone fleeing from them, someone real, someone alive.
"You don't have to worry about them here," he said firmly.
"They won't find you on my land, not if I can help it." For the first time since he found her, Ayana relaxed slightly. She nodded, though her eyes betrayed lingering fear. Cole decided he would give her time. Trust wasn't earned in a day, especially not for someone who had been hunted and hurt. Over the next few days, Cole watched as she began to move slowly around the barn, testing her strength. She was cautious but resourceful, tending to minor injuries with his guidance. At night, they shared small conversations, first broken sentences, then slowly, stories about who they were, where they came from. Cole learned she was part of an Apache clan, a guardian of an energy source the corporations wanted to control. She had been caught while trying to protect it and had barely escaped. Cole admired her courage, and he found himself drawn to her quiet determination. She, in turn, seemed to study him carefully, observing how he lived, how he worked, and how he treated the land. There was an unspoken respect forming between them, a bond built from survival, honesty, and shared purpose. One evening, as a purple-orange sunset bathed the canyon in color, Cole and Ayana stood together near the edge of the property, looking over the plains. "You've done a lot to help me," she said softly. "Most people, they would have turned me away." Cole shrugged. "I've got plenty of land and a few rules. One of them is that no one gets left to die here if I can stop it." Ayana looked at him, a faint smile appearing for the first time. "Thank you, Cole Harper," she said. The wind blew through the canyon, carrying the distant hum of hover trains on the far horizon. The world was changing, but in that quiet moment, the ranch was a small, safe place where trust and courage could grow. Cole felt a strange sense of hope, the kind that came when you discovered someone who wasn't just a stranger, but someone who might change your life forever. He didn't know what the future held, or the dangers still coming, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't let anything happen to Ayana while she was on his land. Not while he could fight, not while he could protect. And for the first time in a long while, the wind didn't just carry whispers from the past, it carried the possibility of a new beginning. The morning sun spilled across Cole Harper's ranch, warming the windswept plains and turning the canyon walls to gold. Cole was already awake, checking the solar turbines and wind panels for damage from the previous night's gusts. His horse, Dusty, munched lazily on the hay near the barn, but his mind wasn't on the usual chores today. It was on Ayana. She had been staying in the barn for nearly a week now, slowly regaining strength. Her injuries were healing faster than Cole had expected, thanks to a combination of nanobot patches and his careful care. But there was something else. Her gaze often drifted toward the horizon, wary and alert, as if expecting trouble at any moment. Cole approached her quietly. "Good morning," he said, trying to keep his voice light. Ayana looked up, her dark eyes still shadowed by fatigue. "Morning," she replied softly. She tried to sit up straighter, but a sharp wince told Cole she still wasn't fully recovered. "Take it easy," Cole said, kneeling beside her. "You're stronger than yesterday, but don't push it." She nodded, biting her lip. There was a quiet stubbornness about her, a resilience that Cole admired. I need to get stronger," she admitted. "I can't just hide forever." Cole nodded. He understood that. Survival wasn't just about hiding. It was about preparing, learning, and fighting when necessary. "Then we'll train," he said, slowly. "You'll get your strength back and I'll help you. We'll be ready if anyone comes looking." Ayana's eyes flickered with something like relief, and perhaps the first trace of trust. The next days passed in a routine of healing, work, and small lessons. Cole showed her how to check the energy turbines and maintain the solar panels, skills that would help her survive in this frontier. Ayana, in turn, shared her knowledge of the land. She taught him how to track animals, find hidden water sources, and recognize the signs of approaching storms. Even though she had come from a distant clan and had endured hardships Cole could barely imagine, she seemed almost at home learning alongside him. One afternoon, while the sun hung high and hot in the sky, Ayana wandered to the edge of the canyon. Cole followed her. "The land it speaks," she said softly, running her fingers over the dry soil and rocks. "You can hear it if you listen." You can feel who is coming and when danger is near. Cole raised an eyebrow. You mean like a warning system? Ayanna shook her head. No machines, nature. The wind, the birds, the way the dust moves, everything tells a story. You just have to listen. Cole watched her, fascinated. There was a quiet power in her presence. She had survived attacks, injuries, and betrayal, yet here she was, teaching him how to see the world in a new way. Teach me, he said simply. And she did. For hours she showed him how to read the signs, the rustle of leaves for movement, the distant call of a hawk for approaching travelers, and even subtle changes in the wind. Cole was a quick learner, though his modern eyes struggled to see what she could. But slowly he began to understand. That evening, while they prepared dinner over a small fire near the barn, Cole noticed her watching the horizon again. You're always looking out there, he said. I have to, she replied quietly. They're still searching. I can feel it. Cole frowned. You don't have to do this alone anymore. You're safe here, with me. No one will take you from this land while I can stop them. Ayanna's eyes softened slightly, but there was still caution. I know. And I trust you, Cole. But they are relentless. They won't stop. Cole nodded grimly. He had heard of corporate factions sending hunting drones and mercenaries after people who resisted. If they found Ayanna once, they would not give up easily. But he had land, resources, and cunning. He would protect her, no matter the cost. Days later, an unexpected event tested their growing bond. A strange hum echoed across the plains. Cole's horse pricked its ears, and Ayanna's eyes widened. From over the canyon, a small hover drone appeared, scanning the area with a blinking red light. Cole grabbed a metal rod and stepped protectively in front of her. Stay behind me, he warned. Ayanna's gaze narrowed, and for a moment Cole saw the warrior side of her, the one who had survived countless dangers. She stepped beside him. Let me help, she said calmly. The drone circled, scanning for life signs. It wasn't large, but it could be lethal if it attacked. Cole waited until it got close, then threw a dirt clump, temporarily blocking its sensors. The drone wobbled, recalibrated, and moved on. That's just the beginning, Ayanna said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed concern. They will send bigger ones soon. And not just drones, men too. Cole nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. He had seen danger before, but protecting someone he cared about gave him a new kind of courage. Then we'll be ready, he said. The next few weeks were filled with preparation. Cole repaired the fences, reinforced the barn, and set up small warning sensors he had built himself. Ayanna helped, her knowledge of the land making their defenses clever and effective. They worked side by side, sharing small laughs and conversations. Slowly, the silence between them grew comfortable. One evening, while checking the perimeter, Cole noticed her staring at the canyon again. This time, she didn't speak. He asked, "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking maybe this place can be home," she admitted quietly. "Not just for me, but for the people I care about. And maybe for you too." Cole felt a warmth he hadn't expected. "I think it already is," he said. Her lips curved into a faint smile, and for a moment, the worries about drones, corporate hunters, and distant enemies seemed to fade. They were just two people, standing on a frontier, finding trust in each other. One night, a storm rolled over the plains. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the canyon in brilliant flashes. Cole and Ayanna huddled in the barn, listening to the thunder. The wind howled, rattling the windows and doors, and the rain began to pour in sheets. "Do storms like this ever scare you?" Cole asked, trying to lighten the tension. Ayanna shook her head.
Not really.
They are nature's test. You see who can survive, who can endure. We can't control them. Only prepare. Cole looked at her, thinking how different she was from anyone he had ever known. She had endured so much, yet she remained calm, thoughtful, and brave. "You're remarkable," he said softly. "You've kept me alive," she replied. "Without you, I wouldn't be here." Cole felt a deep sense of responsibility. "And I'll keep you safe," he said firmly. The storm raged through the night, but inside the barn, a quiet bond was forming. They shared stories, laughter, and small acts of care. The dangers of the world outside were real, but inside, they had each other. And for the first time in weeks, Ayanna allowed herself to feel a small sense of peace. By the end of the month, Ayanna's strength had returned almost fully. She could walk long distances, climb the ridges around the property, and even handle some of the small machinery. Cole watched her with pride. She had not only survived, she had thrived. Their partnership had grown beyond survival. They laughed together, argued over small things like the best way to patch fences or track animals, and shared quiet moments of reflection. Cole felt a new emotion stirring, a protective, tender feeling he hadn't expected. And he sensed that Ayanna felt it too, though she didn't speak it aloud. One evening, while watching the sunset behind the canyon, Ayanna turned to him. "Cole, thank you," she said softly, "for everything. For trusting me, for teaching me, for staying." Cole smiled, brushing a hand over Dusty's mane. "We've got each other now. That's enough for me." And in the quiet glow of the setting sun, the ranch felt safe. But both of them knew the peace wouldn't last forever. Out there, beyond the horizon, danger still lurked. They would have to be ready, and together they would face whatever came next. The morning was unusually quiet on Cole Harper's ranch. Even the wind seemed to hesitate, as if holding its breath. Cole was repairing a fence along the northern ridge, Dusty grazing lazily nearby, when a faint hum carried across the plains. His ears pricked. It was too mechanical to be natural. He set down his tools and scanned the horizon. At first he saw nothing. Then the glint of metal caught the sunlight. A hoverbike, sleek and fast, streaked across the canyon below, followed by two others. They moved with precision, scanning the land with blinking sensors. Cole's heart tightened. "They've found her," he muttered under his breath. Ayanna emerged from the barn, holding a tray of water. She froze when she saw the bikes. Her eyes darkened with fear, but Cole grabbed her arm gently. "Stay calm," he said. "We've been preparing for this." She nodded, swallowing hard. "It's them, the ones who want the energy." Cole helped her back into the barn. "We need a plan," he said. "Quickly." Inside the barn, the two of them moved with quiet urgency. Cole had been fortifying the structure for weeks, reinforcing the walls with metal plates and adding traps around the perimeter. Ayanna had learned quickly, helping him set small alarms using reflective panels and sensors that could detect movement. "They'll come for us with everything they have," Ayanna said. "Drones, men, maybe even robots." Cole nodded. "Then we fight smart. Not just hard. We make them regret coming here." Together, they checked the barn, preparing weapons, energy pulses, and even the old rifles Cole had kept from his grandfather. He showed Ayanna how to use the small energy disruptor he had built, enough to disable drones temporarily. She tested it carefully, nodding when she felt confident. By midday, the hoverbikes had come closer, their engines humming louder. Cole and Ayanna watched from the barn's high window. The corporate hunters had surrounded the property, using scanners to detect heat signatures. There were 5 men on the ground, and 2 drones hovering above. "We can't let them find the main house," Ayanna said, her voice steady. "If they get inside, we're done," Cole agreed. "We'll lure them to the barn. It's stronger, and we have the advantage there." The first drone descended near the fence. Cole activated the disruptor. A bright pulse flashed from his handheld device, and the drone wobbled, sparks flying from its sensors. It crashed into the ground with a metallic clang. "Nice shot," Ayanna said, her voice tense but approving. "Thanks," Cole replied. "Keep watch. They'll try again." The corporate men approached carefully, rifles raised. Cole ducked behind the barn wall while Ayanna readied her bow, a traditional weapon, but fitted with an energy tip she had hidden under the cloth. She took a steady aim, releasing the arrow with precision. One of the men yelped as it struck his scanner pack, sending sparks flying. The fight had begun. Cole fired his energy rifle, hitting the second drone as it swooped down. The barn shook with the sound of laser fire and gunshots. Dusty brayed, sensing the tension, and ran under the barn for safety. Ayanna moved like a shadow, using her agility and knowledge of the land. She knocked over barrels to create obstacles, tripped the attackers with hidden wires, and managed to disable 2 of the remaining drones with well-placed arrows. Cole gritted his teeth. "They're good, but we're better." The sun moved across the sky as the battle continued. Ayanna and Cole worked together, anticipating each other's moves without speaking. She would signal with a small gesture, and he would fire. He would block a path, and she would trap the attackers. At one point, a hoverbike tried to circle behind them, but Cole had anticipated it. He aimed a pulse gun at the ground beneath it. Sparks flew, and the bike skidded, tipping onto its side. The rider scrambled to regain control, but was forced to retreat. Ayanna's face was determined, focused, but her eyes also showed worry. They'll come back with more, she said. Cole nodded. Then we make them pay for every step they take. Hours passed. By late afternoon, most of the attackers were either injured or retreating. Only the leader remained, a tall man in black armor, his face hidden behind a visor. He raised his hand, and a large drone descended from the canyon ridge. Not today, Cole muttered. Ayanna grabbed his arm. We have one chance. Hit it together. They positioned themselves behind the reinforced barn wall. Cole aimed his energy rifle while Ayanna prepared another arrow. As the drone descended, Cole fired a pulse hitting its sensors. At the same moment, Ayanna released her arrow, striking its control panel. Sparks flew and the drone crashed violently into the canyon floor. The leader cursed under his breath, realizing his advantage was gone. "Fall back!" he shouted to his remaining men, who scrambled to retreat. The corporate hunters fled, leaving the ranch in silence once again. Cole and Ayanna stepped outside, surveying the property. The battle had left minor damage. The fences were broken, some panels scorched, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. More importantly, they were alive. Ayanna breathed deeply, finally allowing herself to relax. "We did it," she said, a small smile forming on her lips. "We did," Cole agreed, though he knew this was only temporary. The corporation would return, stronger and more determined, but for now, they had won. Together. Cole looked at Ayanna, seeing her not just as someone he protected, but as a partner in every sense. She had fought beside him, shown courage, and proven her strength. He felt a new bond forming, deeper than survival, one of trust, respect, and perhaps something more. As the sun dipped behind the canyon, painting the sky in reds and purples, Cole and Ayanna repaired the minor damage to the barn and fences. They worked in silence, understanding that words were not always necessary. Each action, each gesture showed their growing connection. That night, Cole made a small fire outside the barn. Ayanna sat beside him, and for the first time they didn't speak about danger, drones, or corporate threats. Instead, they shared stories of their pasts, the things that had shaped them, the people they had loved, and the dreams they still carried. "You've been through so much," Cole said softly, "but you're still here. Stronger than anyone I know." Ayanna looked at him, her dark eyes reflecting the firelight. "I survived because of people like you," she said. "People who care, who fight for what's right. I've never met anyone like you, Cole Harper." Cole smiled. "And I've never met anyone like you, Ayanna. You've taught me things I didn't know I needed to learn. About the land, about courage, and about trust." For a long moment they sat together, watching the stars appear in the clear night sky. The ranch was quiet again, but both knew the danger was far from over. The corporate faction would return, perhaps with more firepower, more men, more drones. But they also knew they were ready. Together. Ayanna leaned against Cole, letting herself feel the first small peace she had felt in months. Cole wrapped an arm around her, promising silently that he would protect her, no matter the cost. And somewhere deep in the canyon, beyond the reach of the stars, the distant hum of returning hoverbikes whispered a warning. The next battle was coming. But for now, in the quiet of the ranch, Cole and Ayanna allowed themselves a moment of victory, a moment to feel safe, alive, and united against whatever the frontier would throw at them next. The first light of dawn crept over the canyon, painting the desert in soft golds and oranges. Cole Harper stood at the edge of his property, Dusty at his side, scanning the horizon. The night had been quiet, almost too quiet. He could feel it in his bones, the calm before a storm. Beside him, Ayanna tightened the strap of her bow across her back. She had slept little, her mind filled with warnings from the previous battle. "They'll come back," she said quietly, her eyes sharp and alert. Cole nodded. "And, we'll be ready. We've survived this long, haven't we?" Ayanna's lips curved in the faintest smile. "Yes, together." The word carried weight. Together. In the months since he had found her injured on his land, the two had grown inseparable, their bond forged through shared danger, mutual respect, and quiet moments of trust. By mid-morning, the distant hum grew louder. Cole and Ayanna climbed to a ridge overlooking the plains. From far off, dust rose as a convoy of hoverbikes approached, larger and faster than the last time. This time, the corporate faction had brought reinforcements. 10 bikes, 5 drones, and a squad of armored men moving with precision. "They've brought everything," Ayanna said, her jaw set. "We need a plan." Cole studied the terrain. The canyon offered advantages. the cliffs, the narrow passes, and the high ground. "We lure them into the canyon," he said. "We know the land, we use it." Ayanna nodded, understanding immediately. "I can set traps along the paths they'll take. You and Dusty handle the drones." Together they worked quickly. Ayanna hid energy mines behind rocks and narrow paths, rigged wires to trip hoverbikes, and marked safe paths for themselves. Cole set up improvised barriers, energy pulses, and reinforced positions on the ridge. They were ready, not just to defend the ranch, but to turn the canyon into a trap. As the convoy approached, the first drone swooped low over the ridge. Cole fired the disruptor, sending sparks flying from its sensors. It crashed into a rock below. Ayanna let an arrow fly, hitting the lead hoverbike and sending its rider tumbling into a ditch. The remaining riders accelerated, trying to split and avoid the traps, but the canyon worked against them. The wires caught two bikes, flipping them violently. Energy mines exploded in brilliant flashes, forcing the others to slow. Cole and Ayanna watched, coordinating silently like dancers. From the ridge, Cole fired his energy rifle with precision, hitting drones as they swooped to attack. Ayanna moved agilely, knocking over boulders and guiding the attackers into narrow paths where their numbers counted for nothing. The leader, clad in black armor and riding the largest hoverbike, shouted orders, frustration clear in his voice. "Push forward, don't let them escape." Cole and Ayanna exchanged a glance. "We end this now," Cole said. The final showdown took place near a narrow canyon pass. The leader tried to break through, but Ayanna had anticipated it. She triggered a hidden energy barrier, forcing him to stop. Cole fired a precise pulse, hitting the bike's engine. Sparks flew, and the bike skidded, forcing the leader to crash into a pile of rocks. The remaining men surrendered quickly, realizing the canyon was no longer theirs to command. The drones had been disabled, the bikes destroyed, and the corporate hunters trapped by their own arrogance. Ayanna walked forward, bow lowered but eyes sharp. Cole followed closely. Together, they faced the leader who struggled to rise. "It's over," Ayanna said firmly. The man glared, but there was no fight left in him. "This isn't the last you've seen of us," he spat. Cole shook his head. "Maybe not. But today, you leave my land, and you never return." The man had no choice but to retreat, leaving the canyon and the ranch in silence. The aftermath was quiet but satisfying. Cole and Ayanna walked along the ridges, surveying the damage. Fences were broken, rocks had fallen, and the remnants of drones and bikes lay scattered across the plains. But nothing could erase the victory, the survival, and the bond they had forged. Ayanna leaned against Cole as they watched the sun dip behind the distant cliffs. "We did it," she said softly. Cole smiled, brushing a hand through her hair. "We did, and we'll be ready if they ever come back." For the first time since she had arrived, Ayanna allowed herself to feel safe. The ranch was not just a place of survival, it was home. And Cole was no longer just a protector. He had become her partner, someone she trusted with her life and her heart. Over the next days, they repaired the ranch, strengthening fences and rebuilding the barn. Ayanna's knowledge of the land proved invaluable, and Cole admired her skill and intelligence. Together, they cleared the debris of battle, restoring the ranch to its former calm. At night, they would sit by the fire, sharing stories of their pasts. Cole learned of Ayanna's clan, the ancient traditions they held, and the responsibilities she had carried for so long. She learned of Cole's life, his solitude, and the reasons he had chosen this frontier life. The more they shared, the more they realized how much they had come to rely on each other, not just for survival, but for companionship, trust, and love. One evening, after a long day of work, Cole led Ayanna to a small ridge overlooking the plains. The sky was painted with the colors of sunset, and the wind carried a calm that hadn't been there in months. "Ayanna," Cole began, his voice steady but filled with feeling, "you've been through more than anyone should. You came here injured, and I promised to protect you. But somewhere along the way, I realized I don't just want to protect you. I want to be with you, always." Ayanna's eyes widened, and for a moment the wind seemed to stop. She studied his face, seeing the sincerity and warmth he carried. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. "Cole, I feel the same way," she whispered. He took her hand, holding it gently. "Then stay with me. Not just for survival, but for life. For us." Ayanna nodded, tears of relief and happiness shining in her eyes. "I will," she said. And in that quiet moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the plains stretched endlessly before them, Cole and Ayanna's bond was sealed. It was not just a union of convenience or protection, but a true partnership, one born of trust, courage, and shared trials. The days that followed were peaceful. They rebuilt the ranch, planted crops, and cared for the animals. The threat of the corporate faction lingered, but they had learned to anticipate danger and prepare. The ranch became a sanctuary, not just for themselves, but for anyone seeking refuge from the dangers of the frontier. Cole and Ayanna worked side by side, blending tradition with technology. She taught him ancient tracking techniques and survival strategies, while he taught her the workings of energy panels and pulse devices. Together they created a life that was both modern and rooted in the wisdom of the land. At night, they would sit by the fire, sharing dreams and quietly planning for the future, and as the stars shone brightly over the canyon, the ranch no longer felt isolated. It felt alive, full of promise and hope. One evening, as they stood on a ridge, looking over the plains where danger had once lurked, Cole turned to Ayanna. "We've been through so much," he said, "and yet I can't imagine doing this without you." Ayanna smiled, taking his hand. "And you won't have to," she replied. "We face the future together. Whatever comes, we face it side by side." The wind whispered through the canyon, carrying a sense of peace. The battles were over, the threats held at bay, and for the first time in months they allowed themselves to imagine a life without fear, a life filled with love, trust, and the quiet beauty of the frontier. Cole and Ayanna stood together as the last light faded, knowing that the ranch was safe, that their bond was unbreakable, and that they had each other. The frontier stretched endlessly before them, wild and untamed, but they were ready. Together, nothing could stop them. And so, in the golden light of a new dawn, Cole Harper and Ayanna, once a hunted woman and a solitary rancher, found not only safety but a home, a partnership, and a love that would endure across the wide-open plains of the new Mesa frontier.